It has started. It has started fairly early. My question to Ron Hira is: let's look at the fundamental, the broader issues that have been raised here by Swaminathan Iyer. This whole business, whenever something is going wrong, your unemployment figures are high. Generally, blame offshoring of jobs for all the reasons of the existing sluggishness in your economy. Has this become an inescapable trend, Mr. Hira?
Well, I'd say offshoring certainly has exacerbated the problem. I mean, the notion that it hasn't had any negative impact, I think, is wrong. In fact, we've lost hundreds of thousands of jobs, millions of jobs, both to China, to India, to the Philippines, all around the world. And so the question is, how do you respond to that? Most of the people who've promoted offshoring have argued that America is a job creation machine, and that there will be no problem in reabsorbing those people who lose jobs. The reality is that we're not creating jobs, that we've gone through the worst decade on record in terms of job creation. We have less jobs today than we did 10 years ago, and we have 30 million more people in the U.S.
If this was such a major issue, Ron,
it's not all due to offshoring.
Ron,
it's not all due to offshoring.
Ron, if this was
the negative impacts of offshoring,
if this was such a major issue,
you've got to respond to those in some way.
No, if this was such a major issue, Ron, the straight question to you is: why has these bills not gone through? Why are they nothing more than simple, occasional political rhetoric? You know, the kind of statements that are made. Why have they never gone through? If you say it's as serious as it is.
Yeah. Well, I think what's happened is basically what your other guests have pointed out, which is most of the corporate interests are in favor of offshoring. And so when you've got companies that are in favor of it, they have a disproportionate influence over what goes on in terms of policy making in the U.S. We have a democracy, but we've got one that's kind of imbalanced, where Wall Street and the corporate interests have a strong impact here. Now, this wasn't always the case. Back in the 1980s, for example, when we had the rise of Japan, you had corporate America go to Washington asking for protection, and they got it. The semiconductor industry got it, the auto industry got it, the steel industry got it. And so when you start to see American corporations start to lose out, that's when I think you'll start to see the policy.
Are they really losing out? Swami, are they really losing out? Is this right? Because as Jagdish Bhagwati has argued, that outsourcing is not destroying American jobs. These jobs are going anywhere, because the goods would be too expensive to produce. American companies would be not competitive.
Exactly.
Swami.
Exactly. No, I'll simply say this. There is a generalized problem in America that, we had come to an international division of labor, where a lot of the mass manufacturing was going to China, some low-end services were coming to Asia and India, and America was focusing on basically on financial services,
yes.
R&D and some high-end manufacturing. With that finance having collapsed, there is a huge void of what is going to be the new international division of labor. I think as long as this remains unresolved, you're going to get a transition which will take several years, within which I have no doubt that there will be protectionist measures, and in a democracy like this, I would say they are inescapable. I'm not sure where it's going to end up. I'm optimistic because till now, from 2008 till now, the amount of actual protectionism that has taken place truly has been minimal. But I would say the world needs to congratulate itself on the extent to which it has insulated itself against gross protectionism. Therefore, all I'm saying is I'm mildly optimistic, but I do see a longer-term structural adjustment problem on the international division of labor.
Yeah, surely, but more than what has actually been done is this sort of, the radical symbolism of this. And the concern there is, and Mr. Vikri, the reason I keep coming is, obviously Ron is right. There are corporate pressures, there are other pressures where you cannot go in for radical measures, at least not as of now. But when you say things such as, and I went through this particular law, when, this particular bill, and I saw, when you say things such as, we will have to disclose the physical location at the beginning of the customer service communication. It basically means that the first thing you receive, a phone call, say you're asking for a loan or you're asking a service, and the person on the other side will say, where are you from, rather than what you want. Is this just encouraging some new form of xenophobia across America when people start doing that? This is just going to encourage pure xenophobia. I won't listen to you because you're not American.
Well, it certainly appeals to the nationalistic kinds of sentiments, blame the foreigners kind of approach. But India is not exempt from that. In many situations, the whole blame the foreigner approach has been politically very salient in India. We have to be able to fight against it on both sides. Now, the real political problem, and this bill is much worse than just having the disclosure of where somebody's talking from. In fact, it requires disclosure of anybody who moves a call center from the United States to India to disclose that. And then there are retaliatory measures against such a person. So that is a very bad thing. It's sort of like what John Kerry was talking about in 2004 when he talked about Benedict Arnold, traitorous corporations that move jobs abroad. But here's the real problem of both the India side and the U.S. side, and that is this 1% versus the 99% that we see in these Occupy movements. The fact is that most of the benefits in terms of the U.S. benefits from offshoring go immediately to the top 1%. And so the question is, how do you protect the interests of people, the middle class? How do you have inclusive growth in India? And we haven't solved that. But unfortunately, on the Indian side, and you brought it up, this business about
Swami?
keeping Americans out of retail is a very bad idea.
Swami wants to respond to you, Raymond. Swami wants to respond to you.
No. I think it's entirely wrong to suggest that offshoring, whether of goods or services, only benefits the 1%. It brings down the costs in America of all goods and services. If all these things were done in America, that 99% would be paying much, much more. So it's entirely wrong to say that this offshoring is only benefiting that 1%. Okay. It is benefiting everybody.
Raman Roy also wants to respond to you, Raymond Vikri.
If I may add, there is a clever aspect to the way whoever drafted this has drafted, talking only of call centers. Because theoretically, if they said that we will not take any IT from India, there aren't enough engineers in the United States of America to do the work that they need to fulfill the needs that they have. So why talk only of call centers? Why not talk of IT? Why not talk, Apple is the most valued company today. All the iPods, all the iPads that they sell, they're designed in the United States, made in China. Are they going to put Apple on the shelf of the stores to say, made only in the United States,
would you like to respond?
$1,500?
Ron,
made
would you like
China,
to respond to Raman Roy?
$300. What do you want to buy?
Ron.
Well, I think you're giving an extreme example. You're basically arguing, should we have autarky? Should we make everything in our country, or should we trade? And obviously the answer is we want to trade. The question is how we manage this process, and how do we manage the negative impacts of globalization, technological change. The reality is the people like Bhagwati and others who've promoted offshoring have basically said, let's assume away all of the negative employment impacts on Americans, both in terms of lost jobs and lost wages, and we don't really have to do anything. All we have to do is worry about managing the macroeconomy through fiscal and monetary policy. Those are obviously not working. We had a huge stimulus on the fiscal side. On the monetary side, we've had 0% interest rates. We can't do anything more from the Fed. And we're growing 2.5%, maybe 3%. That's not enough to make up the 15 million, 18 million job hole that we've got. We've got to think about other strategies. And I'm not advocating autarky. I mean, that's just silly. I'm also not calling CEOs Benedict Arnolds. They're not Benedict Arnolds. Because that's wrong for two reasons. First, they're not traitors. Secondly, you can't appeal to their patriotism. They're acting rationally to try to maximize profits, and we see corporate profits being huge. But they're not reinvesting in R&D. They're not reinvesting in factories in the U.S. They're sitting on that cash. Well, the system is it's not just offshoring. The system is broken in many ways, and there's lots of things that we need to do. But to say that offshoring has no negative impact is wrong.
Yeah. Only question is tonight, and I want to share this with our viewers. I thank our panelists for that robust debate. The question is, America has many ways to go about it. It can make people ineligible for loans. It can bring in certain remove tax concessions, etc. But when you bring it down to individuals and nationalities, does it take a completely different kind of meaning? While it may appeal at a popular and political level, is it dangerous at another level? That's just food for thought. But for that excellent chat tonight, Raymond Vickery, Ron Hira, Swaminathan Iyer and Raman Roy, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you.